Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be joined by my new friend, Ruthy Taylor, who Ruthy is an empire builder. She's known locally for real estate, but she also has really carved out a place for building teams, social media, doing it her own way, and having massive success with it. We spoke on stage together, and I literally had to change my calendar to make room for her. So, Ruthy, thank you so much for being here. I'm just excited to pour into the people. Please say hello to the audience.
Hello, Kelsey. Thanks for inviting me. I'm so excited to chat and share and bring any value that I can.
I mean, you guys, Ruthie literally broke her toe days before this big event.
The day
The
before.
day before, she hobbled on stage and said, "No, I'm going to do this thing." And that told me everything I needed to know. And then when she started to throw these really honest, genuine truth bombs about social media, how to use it as a business owner, I was like, this is important and this is the kind of conversations we need to be having. So I'm just so honored that you are here. But I think we need to start at the beginning. For those that have not met you, don't know your story, do you mind explaining how you kind of got into real estate and built this initial empire? And then we'll touch on the social media stuff after that.
Yeah, the long and the short of it is I've been in sales my whole life. And when I moved to Washington, met my husband, I was in a corporate sales job. And we originally moved here for ministry. He was a pastor and we were planning a church. And I was just like, I'm going to support the family because there's no money in ministry. And he picked up real estate part time. And he really did well at it. And so I was like, oh, I'll eventually join him. But I had two babies in the process and, was working corporate. So long story short, after my second kid, my husband's business was booming. I was like, I want to be in the family business. I want to help with this. And I got my license and I wish kicking myself that I didn't do it sooner. I'm so glad I got into this business. It was like, this was the dream career. It's what I was made for.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I think there's a lot of things where worst case scenario, you start soon and maybe you learn it's not for you, but I totally see real estate, entrepreneurship, some of those other avenues. Like, why not? Just go for it. You can learn along the
Mhm.
way.
Yeah, totally.
So obviously you've grown since then. It's not
Yes.
just you. You're not just selling houses directly. Tell me more about the growth side of it, turning it into a partnership and all of that. How did that come to be?
Yeah, so my husband, when I got licensed, he was already running a team. He was running one of the largest team in the Pacific Northwest and was having a lot of success. I just thought, oh, I'll do it part-time, but I really fell in love with it. And my role, I actually come from a direct sales background. I sold door to door for a decade. And even though I had that skill set, I was like, I feel like real estate is a relationship business. And we were new to Tacoma. We didn't grow up here. We didn't have friends here, but I knew that I could build this in a way that felt right for me. Cold calling is a skill set I think every salesperson should know. I think it's something that should be your backup plan if your pipeline is not full. But I really wanted to try to build my business organically instead of paying for leads and cold calling, even though I knew how to do it. And that really changed the direction of how we ran the team. And so it through time changed to a relationship model versus like a cold call model. And we built in events, we built in what we call touches to our community, and saw a lot of success with that. And that's still the foundation that our brokerage is built on today. We became brokerage owners of somebody's heard of Keller Williams. So we became owners in a couple of KW franchises, did really well with that and grew those. But at the end of the day, after doing this for a while, my husband is a visionary and entrepreneur, and he was like, I really want to change the direction of how things are run. And so we made the decision to sell off the brokerages and start our own. And this was March of 2020, 1 week before lockdown. We had bought this big, beautiful commercial building. We were really excited. And then a week later, literally after our announcement, we got shut down. And the beauty in all of that chaos is you really learn how to pivot. And we weren't the only ones trying to figure it out. The whole world was literally trying to figure life out. But I think because we didn't have to go through some long chain of command, like we could just make decisions, and we made lots of bad ones, but we covered very quickly. I think a lot of agents from the outside were like, what are they doing over there? That looks, in this time where I think everybody was scared and fearful, we just made decisions. And so we had this presence on social media, and literally our phone, like people were like, how do I join you? How do I join you? How do I join you? And we became the fastest growing brokerage during COVID. So we now have 3 offices and 180 agents, and we're still kind of blown away every time our phone rings and somebody wants to come over here. It feels like such an honor. It really, when an agent gets licensed and deciding where they want to hang their license, or if they've been with another brokerage for a decade and they decide to move over to us, like we take that very seriously. And we want to provide them as much value as possible because we know that's a big decision to move a book of business to a new brokerage. And so I sell real estate personally. I've loved it. I can't get away from it. And I've grown my team because more and more people reach out, and I don't want to say no to anybody. And so I want to be able to help anybody who reaches out to me. So it's a little multifaceted. I personally help people buy and sell with a team, and then I help the brokerage. I work on the marketing side. And so, yeah, there's just something new every day.
I I'm glad to have your expertise and your vantage point because a lot of entrepreneurs, we were talking before we hit record, but there's this mindset of saturation. And I love you, but your industry, everyone knows multiple real estate agents. The last data point, I think it was like 7, like the average
Yeah,
American knows like up to 7, probably more real estate agents well, right? So some could
absolutely.
say it's a very competitive industry, but what Ruthy's sharing, like those principles apply. If that works in what you could consider like a saturated industry, imagine what these principles could do for any business. And a lot of what you do, teams, culture, marketing, strategy, all those things apply. So that's why I'm grateful to have like your perspective on this because I think it's so important. I want to hear what marketing and social media has done for your personal brand and then also for the business that you have built because I think there's probably some different things there.
Yeah. So funny. I was on Instagram before Instagram became a business tool.
Mm.
I used to be like a mommy blogger. And so I connected with other moms, right? Because I had kids and I'm like, I don't know anybody in Tacoma. I just connected with people online. And so Instagram was like a social tool for me initially. And then when I first became licensed, I realized it took me 2 years to realize, holy cow, I get a lot of my business from Facebook and Instagram, and without trying, right? It just naturally happened. And once I realized, like, wow, a lot of people reach out to me through this technology, I'm like, ding dong, like double down on this, right? Like it took me a while. I was in those toddler years, right? My mind was just fuzzy. And so Instagram has changed so much. It, like, even from just 6 months ago. And I think I've loved it as a tool to connect with people, but I'm fascinated by the business side of it and the marketing side of it and how it really is a tool that can grow people's business. And so I think because I'm so fascinated by it, it's not just something that I doom scroll on, right? Like I am watching people's marketing techniques change. I'm watching their copy change. I'm watching different technologies that are coming out for social, and I'm quick to implement because I enjoy it, and two, I feel like you have to early adopt, and so much is there's been a million other apps that have come and gone that I've jumped onto those trains. Those haven't lasted, but Instagram has lasted, and it's a tool that I enjoy, and so I feel like I'm an early adopter. When Reels came out, I was like, I'm going to jump on that, and I think that was a huge Reels just changed my business because nobody wanted to be on video. Right. And I don't know, I just really liked it. I thought it was fun. And yes, I felt goofy initially. I was like, oh my gosh, I did some of the dancing videos and the lip syncing videos, but I don't know. I just really, I enjoyed it. And I also, here's my problem. And I think where most people struggle, I'm a people pleaser and I very much care what people think. And I think the gift of being in my mid 40s is my give a damn is just a lot. I just don't care as much as I used to. And so that's the gift of age and maturity. But I still, to my core, my inner being is I don't want anyone to be disappointed or displeased in me. So I'm very conscientious about what I post, but I put myself out there.
I love that you said that because I think at the core, if you're a business owner and you're listening and you're struggling with consistency or really leveraging the tool to its maximum, there's something deeper than I don't have things to post.
Yes.
And I think you kind of called that out in a very eloquent way.
Thanks.
Yeah, I want to hear from your vantage point, when did it start working successfully? Like, what are some metrics you were able to measure, or, yeah, correlations you were able to draw that, like, hey, my time invested in this platform is turning into dollars or people for the team or whatever?
Yeah, this is, I think, the differentiator between a lot of people who get in this industry is everybody go, oh, selling real estate looks so fun. I watch Selling Sunset and I watch HGTV, and they're like, I like houses, therefore I'm going to get licensed. And what they do not realize is when you become a real estate agent, is you become an entrepreneur, you become a business owner, and most people. I didn't come from a background of owning a business, right? And so you're learning as you go. But if you don't have any business sense, then you don't know how to track anything. You don't have a P&L, you don't realize that you're spending more than you're making, you don't look at your metrics. Once I started tracking like where every piece of business came from, whether it was a referral, whether it was somebody from my sphere of influence, whether somebody reached out to me from Google or my website, once I started tracking, I realized, and it's been consistent for, I would say, the past 6 years, about 30% of my business comes from social media. It's not my own lead
Wow.
generation lever, right? Like you
Yep.
have to have multiple. And I would say it's gone down a little bit as more and more people are utilizing social media. And now social media, somebody who finds me on social media and somebody who I know from the community kind of blends, but like the random person that I have no idea who sends me a direct message that says, hey, can you help me sell my house? That's what I would call a social media lead, somebody I had no connection with. And like I said, about 30% of my business comes from that. And so I've been tracking that, where all of my business comes from, consistently for the past 6 years.
Ruthie, louder for the people in the back. That's so, what an important thing, because you can feel quote unquote like it's working, but if you're not tracking it and being able to identify patterns and consistencies, then you don't know. You're just
Yeah.
operating off of assumptions. And I love that that's a very simple thing. Anyone listening right now could just bust out a spreadsheet, some
Yeah,
easy place to keep track of this, and then ask the
absolutely.
question for sure. I love that.
And what I love about social media, I shared this at the event that we spoke at, is I had never, I'd looked and I was like, okay, about 30% of my business comes from social media, but I'd never tracked like monetarily what that actually meant for me.
Hmm.
And so when I did this presentation, I was like, let me just track it. And it was 750,000 plus. So $750,000.
Wow.
And my real estate career, this is my 9th year in the business, has come from social media, all organic. So no paid advertising. And when you think about any new business and advertising costs, marketing costs, the fact that this free platform has brought me $750,000 of business that I haven't had to pay for, it's like, jump on this, people. Like, jump on it. Don't let that fear hold you back, because you will spend so much money marketing and advertising your business. And if you just learn this little platform, it's like this, the cherry on top, like this revenue that comes in that
Yeah.
you're not paying for.
Yeah, so true. I want to hop back to your sales muscle that you already had going into the industry, because I think a big gap for entrepreneurs is sales and not having the structure and the confidence and having a sales conversation. So I'm curious from your perspective, what are some just tactical tips or things to be aware of as a business owner? And I think a lot of this happens, this is in the DMs, this is in those
Yeah.
follow-up conversations. Instagram's a great kind of launching pad, but we also get to turn those fans and followers into clients, and that happens through sales. So what advice would you give to the person listening who maybe didn't have the skill set that you did?
This, Kelsey, this is such an important question. And I don't think enough people pay attention to it, because they're like, whether you're selling real estate or you're selling flowers or you're selling, MLM, like whatever it is, people communicate so poorly. And I will tell you, I'm a recovering awkward person. Like I am introvert by nature,
Yeah.
but I've been in commission sales since I was 18 years old. And what that meant for me is I have learned to study scripts. I've learned to study people and personalities. I've learned to mirror and match. I have learned to understand body language. Like I was so awkward as a person and so uncomfortable and so insecure in my ability to communicate effectively with other people. I studied it. I literally read I still do self-help books on communication, on having hard conversations, on sales techniques. It is not natural to me whatsoever. And I hope that gives encouragement to people. Like if you're just always feeling like I don't know what to say, study it. There's a gazillion resources out there. There are people who just have a natural talent, who are great with people. And I mean, I have followed those people in the industry. Like I wanted to see how they interacted with people, and they're just gifted. They were born with it. I was not born with it. And I think the biggest thing that I see with people in this industry is they lack so much self-awareness. They do not realize how they are coming across. They either don't realize that their insecurity is coming across, or they don't realize that their egos and pompousness is coming across. They don't listen to the other people. I am a student of the game in studying people, personalities, interactions, body language. I still don't have it mastered, but it's like a fascination to me because I'm so not naturally gifted at it.
I was not expecting that answer, but I love that so much because I agree. I think this is something more and more people need to talk about. And honestly, like everyone's journey in it is different. And for me, I'm the business owner that I would get friend zoned a lot, especially in coaching, because you're basically selling like what could be. And then
Mm,
how I deliver that is holding you accountable, and you're gonna have to do stuff, right? That's a
yeah.
hard I can't like put that in wrapping paper. And so I had to recognize in myself, like, I'm not great at sales because I've never tried, I've never studied it. And so, me personally, when I'm going to scroll and listen to a podcast, 9 times out of 10, current Kelsey, it's a sales podcast. So, I'm constantly working on that too. And I think just the awareness that that one thing, by the way, it can be podcast, YouTube. You don't have to spend money to get better at it, but just the
Totally.
awareness that like this is a section of my business I need to get better at. And I don't think entrepreneurs think that sales is sexy, so they kind of avoid it and they're like, I'll just figure out TikTok. I'll just work on this other shiny thing. But 9
Mhm.
times out of 10, if you have a problem in business, you probably should improve your sales. That's my
Yeah.
thoughts.
And a lot of the podcasts and the books that you read are all it's all regurgitated content.
Yeah.
The best book, the best sales book that I think anyone could ever read is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I read that book at 19 and it changed my life. And it's still on my bookshelf. It's still the one that I recommend. I think every other sales book that's out there is generated and regurgitated content from How to Win Friends and Influence People. And essentially at the core of it, it's about being a good human and learning how to communicate with somebody that helps them feel seen.
Yes. Yeah.
That'd be my 2 cents. Go get that book.
I love it. I
Check it
love
out
it.
from the library.
So good. Okay. How has sales changed for you as you've been shifting some of your energy to growing teams? Because leaders don't realize, hey, leaders, if you're listening, if you have a team of people, you're selling the vision to your team members. A, to
Mhm.
recruit them, but also to help them then sell to the customers. So you're still practicing the same scripts, the same processes. Your end user looks different and the way you apply it looks different, but it's the same principle. So I'm curious from your perspective,
Yeah.
how did that shift look like when you were starting to recruit and grow and retain people?
This has been so hard for me. Like, I am a perfectionist. I am a control freak. I leverage, I don't know, it's a mindset shift and I still work on it. Like I think this North American mindset of like I can do it all and I don't need help. Like my husband literally was like, "Ruthie, let's get a house cleaner. Let's get a nanny. Let's take these things off your plate. What can we do to like lighten the load of grocery shopping and laundry?" And I don't know why I'm like every woman would be like, "Yes." And I'm like, "No, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it all." It has taken me years to let go of control and I'm still working on it. So I was slow to bring on a team. One, because that accountability, I feel such responsibility if somebody's going to be like, "Hey, yes, I am part of your team. I am going to do these things that you tell me to do." And I'm leading, not truly knowing what I'm doing, right? And that's hard. I am, because I'm such a perfectionist, I don't like to do things that I'm not great at. And
Mhm.
leadership is a failing forward sort of position every single day. Like
Yeah.
you aren't a leader, you become a leader. And so I am still in that process of becoming a leader. And I am telling you, I make mistakes every day. I say the wrong things all the time, but you don't get great at leadership until you make all those mistakes. And that, like, on theory and on paper, everybody's like, yeah, of course. But I think I watch my husband, and he is just like, he's the most fail forward person I've ever met. He's like, act and then think, right? And I'm like, let's line up every little thing and figure out every single thing that can go wrong before I actually move forward. And that for me has been one of my biggest mindset things to move forward, is like I doing things imperfectly. So for anyone who's two things, pivoting or not pivoting, thinking about becoming a leadership leader, but feeling like they're not qualified, read books, listen to podcasts, take action, and understand that you are going to mess up. And that is just the process of leadership. The other thing is leverage. The people who actually use leverage in their business are the ones who have those lives that you watch and you're like, how do I get there? People who have leverage who get there. I do not like anyone who says they're self-made is BS. Like, it's just BS. I
Mhm.
came from nothing, and the only reason I am here is because of the help of and encouragement of so many people. And guess what? I have somebody who does my laundry. I have somebody who cleans my house. I have somebody who preps my meals. I have somebody who goes grocery shopping for me. I have assistants. People are always like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't. I literally leverage these tasks out. And I've learned to just be okay with saying that. Like, I felt this weird thing about saying that somebody buys my groceries for me or somebody does my laundry for me.
Mm.
I don't know. I had this like
Yeah.
control thing. Like, I should be able to do it all, but
Yeah, no.
I don't.
No, we got the constraints of time and literally how time works and other things. Where was that tipping point? Because I respect the heck out of that. And I think there are people in that boat of like, I don't want to let go of that. I also think there are people who are quick to outsource to give buy back time, but they don't know
Mhm.
how to direct that time and they almost do it too soon. So I want to know, like, what was that tipping point where it was worthwhile? And then what did you do with that time that you got back? Because I think that's
Yeah.
important too.
Two things. The two instances that happened in my life was I hit perimenopause and I didn't know it. I was going through a season of life where I was like, I physically cannot move at the pace that I used to. I'm brain foggy. Like, something was happening in my body and I didn't know what it was. And for 2 years, I was struggling and I didn't know why. And I was just like, I just got to wake up earlier and I got to go to bed later because I am a hustler. I like love work to the point. Like, I'm not proud to say I'm a workaholic. Like, that is ingrained in me, and I'm working on that. Like,
Yeah.
again, buying back my time. So it was perimenopause, hit at 43, and I was just struggling. I physically was not able to do things that I thought I could do anymore, but I didn't make the decision right away. It was that and a combination of my daughter going through some health issues last year that broke me, that I was like, I physically cannot be here with my daughter and help her navigate this and see multiple specialists and multiple doctors and maintain my business. I felt like I don't want to choose, right? Like, I don't want to let go of my business. My daughter has to be my priority. My health has to be my priority. I had the resources to get help. And I was forced. It was like that was forced upon me. I didn't make the business executive decision, like, I'm going to get help now. Like, I was brought to my knees and I was like, God, I need help. And my husband was like, who has been telling me this for years, like trying to push me to get help. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I hired my first assistant. And then from there, other hires came into place. But my big fear versus my husband, like who's leveraged up from the beginning, is financial. Like, I'm like, I could drive across town and drop off this paperwork. I don't want to pay somebody $25 an hour plus mileage to do it, right? Like, 'cause I'm calculating in my head. But when I realized, like, oh my gosh, what is my actual dollar per hour value? I had to be like, I gotta pay somebody to drive across town. I gotta pay somebody to go get my groceries. And it's not like I'm calculating that hour for hour going, okay, I'm gonna be highly productive in this hour that somebody's getting my groceries, right? I just have a little bit more clarity because I'm not running around like a chicken with my head cut off all the time. And that's the life that I lived. I literally was rushing from one thing to another. I was working in my business, never working on my business. And I was just constantly dropping the ball and not enjoying life. I had my name was in lights and I had great production, but who I was as a person was just not great, you know?
I I just really respect your radical vulnerability
Oh, I don't know
because
any other way to
that's
be.
true. Same, I mean, same. And I think, yeah, the truth is being a business owner is messy and it's hard. And being a woman, we just, listen, boys, we're just wired a little different. And we have
Yes.
some just realities to that. And then you add in all the other hats that we wear beyond just those two. And I think to the person listening to this episode, it should be a gentle reminder of like, why are you doing this thing in the first place? And you're doing a disservice by not taking care of yourself, by not delegating, by not asking for help. Because
Mhm.
in doing that, and I'm going to follow up and ask you this, Ruthie, but I imagine you making these adjustments in your personal life and workload has then led to you being a better boss and a better leader for your team because they need you to be the captain of the ship, and that takes a different brain power. That also takes a lot of energy and just other things that you don't really think about as you're growing and scaling a company.
100%. I will say the biggest gift that bringing on help has brought me is seeing that, like, I know that I have gifts and talents. I really love real estate, but I also feel like I was created for so much more. And
Mhm.
so I am working on some projects. We have some like bucket list type dream things that are or like in the process of, which feels unreal. Yeah, I just feel like this time has not necessarily made me more productive in my business. It's made me realize that, man, I there's so many people left to serve, and there's this huge portion of who I am that isn't even utilized yet. I'm still trying to I know that God is calling me to something really, really big, and I don't really even know what that is yet, but it's got me dreaming again. Like, not just numbers in my real estate business, but outside of that, things for my family, things personally. I feel like I haven't dreamed in a really long time because I've just been so, robotic in my business. And again, in my business instead of working on the business and then outside of the business.
I love that. And I have the same feelings about purpose. And I always say, like, if you're living in your purpose, however you're delivering that, whether that's haircuts or real estate or coaching, that's just the vehicle for you to deliver what you are meant to do on this earth. And I feel that in my soul. And then
Mhm.
to protect that is so important. And if you have really big goals and dreams of that, you got to get your house in order. And that's what you literally had to do. It got to this like crucial moment where it was like make or break. You had to. And so
Mhm.
hopefully you learned from me and Ruthie and catch that before that happens. But sometimes that is that tipping point for people. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just good to have a candid conversation about it.
I think also because I don't want to everybody's journey, like where everybody is in their journey is different. And so if you're starting your journey, I'm going to take back some of the things that I said. Like,
Yep.
there's seasons for everything, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're starting your journey of entrepreneurship, like you got to hustle. And if you're starting your journey of entrepreneurship and you're a mom or you're a single mom or you're dealing with aging parents or whatever your circumstance is that maybe you go, my timeline is not like the single gal who has their parents' money, like we get caught up in everybody else's stories, right? And their success. We just have to be realistic about, okay, these are my circumstances. What can I and what am I willing to do with these set of circumstances? How can I keep the blinders on so I'm not comparing, right? Because we're all walking into these careers with like a set of circumstances that vary so widely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we get caught up in is the middle of somebody's journey and the beginning of ours, and we're playing that comparison game, or we're going, well, I'm a single mom and I'm having to do it on my own, and they have all the help in the world. Like, we just really have to be generous with our timeline and not comparing to other people's timeline, and then truly, and not using as an excuse as to why we're not having success, right? Like, so for anyone beginning their journey, there's all of those things to consider, right? If you're in the middle of the journey, it's very different, right?
Yeah.
Where you've probably had some success and maybe you feel like you are juggling all the balls and you're dropping all the balls and feeling some control. Like, okay, if we release this money into the universe because we're trying to bring on that leverage, it should come back,
Right.
right? In twofold, threefold, fivefold, right?
Yeah.
And so letting go of that fear of control, because there's a lot of people who are much better than we are at so many things. And we're going to feel so much better handing off some of the things that we don't necessarily love to somebody who loves those things,
Yeah.
right?
It's got to make sense in the budget to call it out lovingly. And that's why I asked the question the way I did earlier, because I think there's also some people starting off overwhelmed. Part of starting is just that's just kind of you're wearing all of the hats. And
Yeah,
there's seasons, to your point, I love that word, where that's just how it needs to be. It's how it needs to be. And if you're choosing between Instacart to make things more convenient or literally being able to pay your credit card off, maybe that's not the solution for that season. And
right.
it's not, there's no shame in that. But if that's the reality, and I think all of this stems from this idea of awareness as business owners, part of it is just becoming aware of where you're at and what needs to adjust. And that changes and evolves as you evolve and grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I want to bring this back to social media. I'm curious if you're in that startup phase, you just moved to Tacoma, Washington, you're Ruthy, however many years ago, 5 years ago. No, you
Okay.
said 9. So maybe 10 years ago. How are you showing up if you're new and growing and you're just trying to get that consistent revenue coming in? What's your show up strategy for that person?
Yeah. This is what I truly believe. The person who grows their network the fastest wins. Like, you just have to get out there and grow your sphere of influence. So the beautiful thing about social media is you can do that so quickly. You can scale that. And if you're like, I only got 40 views, well, how many people did you go out and meet today in person while you're at the grocery store? Like, not 40. So
Mm-hmm.
don't look at that as like, I'm not winning here. But
Mm-hmm.
it can't be the only lead generation pillar, right? You can't just rely on social media. We don't own these platforms. I mean, like, Facebook went down a couple weeks ago and everybody freaked out, right? Or Instagram or whatever. So there has to be multiple methods of getting your face in front of people. So whether that's networking groups like you run, whether that's volunteering, what for me, like, again, it's seasons of life. When you're nursing a baby and you've got a toddler at home and you can't get to those networking events, well, you can meet people at the tot lot. I literally would go up to people in the grocery store because I didn't know anybody and I needed friends.
Yeah.
Like, if they had kids the same age as mine, I'd be like, hey, are you guys ever at the tot lot? And again, I am an introvert, but I wasn't licensed at the time. I was really just looking for friends, not clients.
Yeah.
But it's the same concept. We have to get out in front of people. So
Yeah.
think about the methodologies that you can get out in front of people, whether that's print media, online media, your website, networking groups, volunteering, starting a neighborhood watch. I mean, there's a gazillion ideas, a Facebook group. Just get in front of people. If you're starting a business, people need to know who you are. And the only way that you do that is you get out there.
Yeah, out there. And people like, I think they hyper fixate on the social being like the social will be their savior to their business. Especially
Mhm.
these are the early people I'm thinking of. There's a lot of power in just getting connected in community in person.
Much more powerful, in my opinion.
Thank
Much more
you. I
powerful.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Absolutely. It's deeper if you connect with people in your church. Hey, we already have a core thing in common. I'm a huge Coug. I connect to the Coug community. That's like one notch that I have because we already have that one commonality. And
Yeah.
people just, they try to overcomplicate this thing. So if you're in those early stages, you're just getting that consistent revenue in. What I'm hearing from you is just put yourself out there.
You have
Yeah.
to.
You have to. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think people just do it. You're going to do a story and no one's going to watch it, and then the one that you feel like no one's going to watch, everyone's going to watch, and just letting that be. I think that's the other advice I would give from my vantage
Mhm.
point at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Show up strategy when you're in your current boat that you're in, Ruthie. You have a team, you kind of have different focal points, right? If someone wants to buy or sell a home, you can still talk to Ruthie, hit her up. But also,
Mhm.
if you're looking to go work for Mosaic, if you're looking to just have a new friend on Instagram, I think there's multiple reasons Ruthie's on that platform. But I want to hear what's your strategy now when you kind of have multiple things, stokes in the fire,
What's my strategy for what?
social media.
Oh, yeah. So, Social media is fun for me. I know it's not fun. It feels like work for most people. So I'm never looking at Instagram or Facebook like I got to post out today. It's just become a part of my business. And I know that's not the case for everybody. So it's not social media is not hard for me. And I know that feels unfair because most people just feel like it's so hard. It's pulling teeth. So I don't really have a strategy. I'm constantly thinking about content. I'm constantly recording. I document everything. I don't necessarily know how I'm going to use it. And then when I have time in my schedule and when I'm focused, then I'll batch create, not a ton because you have to stay relevant, right? And so I'll batch create some things. I have things listed in my draft. I'm constantly taking notes. I have a lot of saved videos of other things that inspire me, but it's not hard for me to think of copy and put it all together. So if you're in that scenario where it's difficult, then you have to time block it. You have to be strategic about it. And this is what people do wrong, I think, with social media is they feel like they have to do it all at once. Like I got to go record some stuff and then I got to
Mhm.
edit the stuff and then I got to think of the copy of the stuff and I got to think of my call to action and the caption and the music and that's just way too much. My encouragement is to break things down. So create folders in your photo albums of things, whether they're landscape, they're selfies, they're things that just document, and you don't need to know why, just document. And then time block a day in your calendar is, I don't know, for women, I feel like I know on my monthly cycle, like when I'm most creative. And so I tend to time block things like podcasts, things like this when I'm meeting with people. If I have control over the schedule, like I'm never doing anything like that right before my period or on my period because I'm foggy. I'm not, I don't know, I'm just not the best version of myself. So if there's creative times in your schedule, whether that's like lunchtime or Fridays or a time of the month, like think through things that you want to say, topics that you want to share about or educate on, and then go through the day of just like, okay, these are some trending songs that I want to use. Like batch it, like instead of trying to do it all at once. That
Mhm.
makes sense. Like I have
Yes.
all of my coaching calls and all of my meetings on Mondays because I'm in a zone. I'm in a zone. I'm just like it's one after another. I'm not distracted. You can't have 17,000 tabs open on your computer and be going back and forth and be focused, right? Like it's just easier to be focused on one thing. And then when you're done with that one thing, to focus on another thing.
I'm laughing, Ruthie, because this is the hill I will die on, and I do it the same way. And for me, I think of literally like taking off different hats, and like strategy hat Kelsey is different than content creation Kelsey is different
Totally.
than literally scheduling post Kelsey. So why wouldn't you just break it down into those pieces and then leverage, as you used that word earlier so beautifully,
Hmm.
leverage your calendar and your time in a way where you're just wearing that one hat for a longer amount of time. And
Yeah.
I could not agree more.
Well, and Kelsey, that took me like 9 years to figure out. So, I mean, because I was literally squirrel all over the place. And what you realize is you waste so much time and your brain just cannot go from one folder to another and give it 100% when you're doing two completely different things. So I love that you're sharing that and coaching that with girls in your group now because it took me close to a decade to figure that out.
I hope everyone listening, maybe you heard it a different way today and maybe it sticks differently because Ruthie said it. Okay, I told you it would go fast and I could talk to you all day, but I have a Kelsey question and then I want to direct people to you. So the first question I have is there anything you feel like a younger version of you needed to hear today? Like any just parting words of wisdom you would like to embark on younger Ruthie? And it could be Ruthie literally yesterday, years before, I'll let you pick.
Oh gosh, there's so many things I would say to a younger Ruthie. I think the biggest thing that I want to share is you have to keep your blinders on. If you have a goal, if you are passionate about something, I think the easiest way to get derailed is you start looking at what other people are doing and you start comparing and thinking, it's so saturated. What is it that I have to offer? Why would anybody buy from me? If you are passionate about something and you have momentum and you're moving forward, the easiest derailment is to start comparing. And so with social media specifically, what I tell people is if you are watching people in your industry and you don't feel inspired, if it brings up feelings of jealousy or comparison, you got to unfollow. You have to unfollow. You just have to. It will take you so far from your goal. you have to keep focused. And it's really hard, especially when you're new in an industry and you're still not sure what you're doing and what might be relevant. What is in your mind and in your heart, people need to hear, and they're not going to hear it if you start looking at what everybody else is doing. You got to stay focused. And when I say that, I'm speaking to this Ruthy today too. Like this is not just younger Ruthy. I have to stay in that mindset today as well.
Yeah. I love that answer, and I think for those listening, I mean, I think now you understand why I needed I needed a Ruthie on. I just you are special. You are such a gift, and when I just watched you on that stage, I was just in awe. And the amount of people saying the same thing to me, like, "Did you hear what she said? She was my favorite. I loved her." Like, yeah, you truly you just have a way of taking something that can feel so complicated and heavy and saying like, no, real talk, like I was you, here's where I am, here's where I was, like, but here's the path through. And I think the whole point of a podcast, the whole point of our purpose here is that we want to help point like create that path through for people. So I
Hmm.
just want to say thank you so much for everything, for your wisdom, for all that you're doing. Please keep it going.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. And same to you, Kelsey. Same to
thank
you,
you.
truly. I think that you're helping and inspiring and motivating in an in-person way, that what the connection piece that people really crave, need, and desire in such a cool way. I love that you're doing this.
Thank you. Yeah. And if you're listening and you're the right person, Ruthie and I are open for speaking gigs, and we're a pretty good team. We're pretty good. I mean, book us back to back. Maybe we'd be a package deal for the right opportunity. I'm just going to shoot my shot and throw that out there. But I
Yeah.
had to say that I want to end for people who want to connect with you and just keep track of all of the cool stuff you have going on, the little breadcrumbs you've led us through of things to come. Where's the best place for them to do that?
You can always find me on Instagram. That's the best place, Ruthie and Taylor on Instagram. And you can go to my website, ruthytaylor.com. You can Google me. You can email me, ruthie@mosaicrealestate.com. But if you want to get to me quickly, get me in the DMs. That's the best way.
That's so great. Thank you so much for everything. And for those people listening, I'm just excited for you to feel more encouraged in this crazy world of entrepreneurship. You got this, and we just appreciate you being here today. So thank you.
No problem.